Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at American University today. My name is Yazan Hanouna, and I am the director of the Kennedy Political Union, which is American University's student-run lecture group. Today, we're going to hear from Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts on her vision for a foreign policy that works for all Americans. Before we begin, I'd first like to thank our partners who helped make this event possible, including the American University School of Public Affairs, the AU College Democrats, and many more. Thank you so much for all your hard work on today's event. Moderating today's discussion is AU's School of Public Affairs Dean Vicki Wilkins. Vicki Wilkins is the Dean of the School of Public Affairs and Professor of Public Administration and Policy at American University. Her primary research interests include representative bureaucracy, bureaucratic discretion, gender and race issues, deservingness, political institutions, and human resource management. Her research appears in the American Political Science Review, Public Administration Review, Journal of Public Administration Research and Theory, Governance, Review of Public Personnel Administration, Administration and Society, Policy Studies Journal, and Legislative Studies Quarterly. And introducing Senator Warren today is AU Washington Colleges of Law Associate Dean Brenda V. Smith. Dean Brenda Smith is a Senior Associate Dean for Faculty and Academic Affairs. Prior to her hire at the Washington College of Law, she was a Senior Counsel for Economic Security at the National Women's Law Center. In November 2003, Dean Smith was appointed to the National Prison Rape Elimination Commission by the United States House of Representatives Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, and served in that capacity for 6 years. Dean Smith is an expert on issues at the intersection of gender, crime, class, and sexuality. Please welcome Dean Smith now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, great. Yazan, thank you so much for your introduction. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the Washington College of Law. I also want to welcome our students who are from main campus. I know that many of you come to the school to study in the library and also to mix up some of your eating options. But again, thank you. And also to our WCL students. Any of you here raise your hand? Yay! Glad to see you. I know that this is a tough time because, right? I've seen many of you in my office. This is the end of the semester, and I know that reading period is next week, but I'm really happy to see you here. I'm also thrilled to see many of you here who are not WCL students because I hope that it will spur you to think about becoming a double eagle and considering WCL if you're thinking about law school. That is the infomercial. Thanks for those of you who are not, and for those of you who are not insiders, being a double eagle means getting 2 degrees from American University. I bring you greetings on behalf of Camille Nelson, Dean Camille Nelson, who could not be here. She asked that I convey how sad she is to miss this momentous occasion, to welcome the first female senator from Massachusetts, to the first law school to be founded by women. Right? Thank you. The first with a female dean, and the first law school to graduate an all-female class. And I certainly would be remiss in saying, to say that Dean Nelson is also our first African-American dean. Dean Nelson also wanted me to convey to Senator Warren how much she admires her work, and in particular, her documentary material on PBS on unconscionable contracts. For anybody who's not a law student, but lawyers, we understand. You're missing a lot. Dean Nelson used this material in her own contracts class. She also wanted me to mention how much she appreciated the honor of serving on Senator Warren's Federal Judicial Nominating Committee in Massachusetts when she was at Suffolk. Today, I am pleased to introduce Elizabeth Warren, who is the senior U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. Senator Warren was elected in 2012. She is a member of very important committees. The Senate committees on banking, housing, and urban affairs, health, education, labor, and pensions, armed services, and the Special Committee on Aging. All very, very important committees that are, essential to the well-being of people in this country. She is also recognized as one of the nation's top experts on bankruptcy and the financial pressures facing middle-class families. Senator Warren was the driving force behind the creation of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, and at President Obama's request, Senator Warren set up the new agency to hold Wall Street banks and other financial institutions accountable and to protect consumers from financial tricks and traps often hidden in mortgages, credit cards, and other financial products. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, Senator Warren served as chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, also known as TARP. Senator Warren was a law professor for more than 30 years, most recently at Harvard Law School, and is the author of 11 books, including This Fight is Our Fight, A Fighting Chance, and The Two-Income Trap. She and her husband, Bruce Mann, live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with their golden retriever, Bailey. They have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Please join me in welcoming Senator Warren.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, American University, and thank you, Dean Smith, for the wonderful introduction. I am so delighted to be back on campus and very happy to be back at a university that has prepared generations of students for public service. It is a calling, and I'm just delighted to be here with all of you. I had considered doing this lecture Socratically, watch the law students start to swoon, but okay, we'll do this one as a lecture. And I just want to jump straight into this because there's so much to talk about. Let's start with a serious problem. Around the world, democracy is under assault. Authoritarian governments are gaining power. Right-wing demagogues are gaining strength. Movements toward openness and pluralism have stalled and actually begun to reverse. Inequality is rapidly growing, transforming rule by the people into rule by wealthy elites. And here at home, many American politicians seem to accept, even to embrace, politics of division and resentment. So how did we get here? Now, there's a story that we as Americans tell ourselves about how we built an international order, one based on democracy, on human rights, and on improving economic standards for everyone. It wasn't perfect, we weren't perfect, but our foreign policy benefited a lot of people around the world. It's a good story with long roots. But in recent decades, something changed. Beginning in the 1980s, Washington's focus shifted from policies that benefit everyone to policies that benefit a handful of wealthy elites, both here at home and around the world. Mistakes piled on mistakes, reckless, endless wars in the Middle East, trade deals rammed through with callous disregard for working people, extraordinary expansion of risk in the global financial system. And why? Mostly to serve the interests of big corporations while ignoring the interests of American workers. And in decades of domestic policies that have helped the rich get richer and left everyone else behind, it is no wonder that Americans have less faith in democratic government today than at any other time in modern U.S. history. Our country is in a moment of crisis, decades in the making, a moment in which America's middle class has been hollowed out, working people have been betrayed, and democracy itself is under threat. And while it's easy to blame President Trump for our problems, the truth is our challenges began long before him. And without serious reforms, they are just as likely to outlast him. We need to refocus our international economic policies so that they benefit all Americans, not just wealthy elites. And at the same time, we must refocus our security policies by reining in unsustainable and ill-advised military commitments and adapt our strategies overseas for the new challenges we see in this coming century. And we need to end the fiction that our domestic and our foreign policies are somehow separate from each other, and recognize that policies that undermine working families in this country also erode America's strength in the world. In other words, it is time to create a foreign policy that works for all Americans, not just for the rich and powerful. Authoritarianism is on the move around the world, and there is no time to waste. Now, we can start our defense of democracy by fixing what has gone wrong with our international economic policies. The globalization of trade has opened up opportunities and lifted billions out of poverty around the world. Giant corporations have made money hand over fist. But our trade and economic policies have not delivered the same kind of benefits for America's middle class. In fact, U.S. trade policy has delivered one punch in the gut after another to workers and to the unions that fight for those workers. For decades, leaders of both parties preached the gospel that free trade was a rising tide that would lift all boats. It's great rhetoric, except that the trade deals that they negotiated mainly lifted the yachts, and they threw millions of working Americans overboard to drown. Yeah. Now, policymakers were willing to sacrifice American jobs, not their own jobs, of course, but American jobs in return for boosting sales at Walmart and gaining access to consumer markets around the world. Washington had it all figured out. And this confidence spilled into more than trade deals. Champions of cutthroat capitalism pushed former Soviet states to privatize as quickly as possible, despite the enormous risk of corruption. They looked the other way as China manipulated its currency to advance its own interests and undercut work done right here in America. Washington technocrats backed austerity, deregulation, and privatization all around the world. As one crisis after another hit, the economic security of working people around the globe was destroyed, reducing public faith in both capitalism and in democracy. Policymakers promised that open markets would lead to open societies. Wow, did Washington get that one wrong? Efforts to bring capitalism to the global stage unwittingly helped create the conditions for anti-democratic countries to rise up and lash out. Russia has become belligerent and resurgent. China has weaponized its economy without loosening its domestic political constraints. And over time, in country after country, faith in both capitalism and democracy has eroded. A program once aimed at promoting the forces of freedom ended up empowering the opposite. Of course, those trade deals work just great for giant corporations. Huge multinationals used their enormous influence on both sides of the negotiating table to ensure that the terms of the deals always favored their own bottom lines. At home, trillion-dollar global behemoths dominated entire market sectors, while limp U.S. antitrust enforcement remained stuck somewhere back in the 1980s. Now, I believe that capitalism has the capacity to deliver extraordinary benefits to American workers. But time after time, our economic policies left these workers on the short end of the stick. Stagnant incomes, decimated unions, lower labor standards, rising costs of living. Job training and transition assistance have proven powerless against the onslaught of offshoring. By the time the 2008 global financial crash came around, it only confirmed what millions of Americans already knew. The system didn't work for working people, and it wasn't really intended to. And it's still not working. Tomorrow, the Trump administration will likely sign a renegotiated NAFTA deal. There's no question we need to renegotiate NAFTA. The federal government has certified that NAFTA has already cost us nearly 1 million good American jobs. And big companies continue to use NAFTA to outsource jobs to Mexico to this very day. But as it's currently written, Trump's deal won't stop the serious and ongoing harm NAFTA causes American workers. It won't stop outsourcing, it won't raise wages, and it won't create jobs. It's NAFTA 2.0. For example, NAFTA 2.0 has better labor standards on paper, but it doesn't give American workers enough tools to enforce those standards. And without swift and certain enforcement of these new labor standards, big corporations will continue outsourcing jobs to Mexico so they can pay their workers less. NAFTA 2.0 is also stuffed with handouts that will let big drug companies lock in high prices that they charge for many drugs. The new rules will make it harder to bring down drug prices for seniors and for anyone else who needs access to life-saving medicine. And NAFTA 2.0 does little to reduce pollution or combat the dangers of climate change, giving American companies one more reason to close their factories here in the US and move to Mexico, where the environmental standards are lower. That's bad for the earth and bad for American workers. For these reasons, I oppose NAFTA 2.0, and I will vote against it in the Senate unless President Trump reopens the agreement and produces a better deal for America's working families. The president grabs headlines, railing against GM's plan to axe thousands of American jobs in Ohio and Michigan. But his actual policies aren't stopping them, or stopping others like them from continuing to put corporate profits ahead of American workers. It's time for real change. We need a new approach to trade, and it should begin with a simple principle. Our policies should not prioritize corporate profits over American paychecks. That should be true for NAFTA and for every deal we cut. So how can we make a system work fairer for working Americans? And the answer is there are a lot of ways. We can start by ensuring that workers are meaningfully represented at the negotiating table and build trade agreements that strengthen labor agreements worldwide. We can make every trade promise equally enforceable, both the terms that help corporations and the terms that help workers. We can curtail the power of multinational monopolies through serious antitrust enforcement. We can work with our international partners to crack down on tax havens. Those 4 changes would fundamentally alter every trade negotiation we undertake. Our economic policies are also about far more than trade. Our policies should address the challenges of today's interconnected world. To address corruption, we need transparency about the movement of assets across borders. To get serious about privacy, we need to actually protect data rights, both from global technology companies hell-bent on boosting market share and from governments that seek to exploit technology as a means to control their own people. To make progress on climate change and protect our higher standards here in the US, We should leverage foreign countries' desire to access U.S. markets as an opportunity to insist on meaningful environmental protections. Just last week, our own government said that climate change is already happening and will dramatically endanger the world we share. The threat is real and it is existential, and we need to take action now. In other words, we need to set new rules for global capitalism in the 21st century, rules that work for all Americans, not just for wealthy elites. Now, none of this requires sacrificing the interests of American businesses, although it will require some of them to take a little longer view. The world exists beyond the next quarterly report. We should be on the side of American businesses, protecting them from unfair practices abroad. And that means aggressively targeting corruption and pay-to-play demands from unscrupulous governments. It means fighting back against the threat of forced technology transfer in exchange for market access. And it means penalizing the theft of American intellectual property. These are policies that are good for American workers, good for American investors, and good for American businesses. And that's the kind of work we should pursue. A foreign policy that lifts the fortunes of all Americans must also take an honest look at the full costs and risks of our military actions. All three of my brothers served in the military. I know that our service members and their families are smart and tough and resourceful. But a strong military should act as a deterrent so that most of the time we won't have to use it. That's not where we are today. For nearly 2 decades, this country has been mired in a series of wars, conflicts that sap American strength. The human cost of these wars has been staggering. More than 6,900 Americans killed, another 52,000 wounded, many more who live every day with the invisible scars of war, and hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. The financial costs are also staggering. The U.S. has put more than $1 trillion on a credit card for our children to pay, a burden that creates a drag on our economy that will last for generations. Meanwhile, Congress has shirked its responsibility to oversee these expanding conflicts. Despite America's huge investment, these wars have not succeeded even on their own terms. 17 years later, the Middle East remains in shambles. U.S. counterterrorism efforts have often undermined other efforts to reinforce civilian governance, to reinforce the rule of law, and to reinforce human rights abroad. We have partnered with countries that share neither our goals nor our values. In some cases, as with our support for Saudi Arabia's proxy war in Yemen, U.S. policies risk generating even more extremism. Widespread migration of millions of people seeking safety from war-torn regions has allowed right-wing demagogues to unfairly blame the newcomers for the economic pain of working people at home. And even with all of the blood and money we have spilled, America still faces violent terrorist groups that wish to do us harm. While our leaders were focused on wars in distant lands, the world changed under our feet. Would-be rivals like China and Russia watched and learned, and they are hard at work developing technologies and tactics to leapfrog the United States in areas like cyber and robotics and artificial intelligence. Neither military nor civilian policymakers seem capable of defining success, but surely this is not it. The first responsibility of government is to do what is necessary to protect ourselves at home and abroad. But it is long past time we ask the question, what actions make us truly safer? Let's start by re-examining our force structure around the world. The United States has troops deployed in harm's way in over a dozen countries today. Take Afghanistan. We have turned the corner in Afghanistan so many times that we are now going in a circle. Poppy production is up. The Taliban are on the rise. Afghan forces are taking unsustainable losses. The government is losing territory and credibility. On my trip to Afghanistan last year, I met American service members who were young children on 9/11. This isn't working. Yes, we can and we must continue to be vigilant about the threats of terrorism, whether from Afghanistan or anywhere else. But rather than fighting in an Afghan civil war, let's help them reach a realistic peace settlement that halts the violence and protects our security. Let's make sure that the 3 brave Americans killed in Afghanistan this week, including a soldier who grew up in Boston, are the last Americans to lose their lives in this war. It is time to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, starting right now. And next, let's cut our bloated defense budget. The United States will spend more than $700 billion on defense this year alone. That is more than President Ronald Reagan spent during the Cold War. It is more than the federal government spends on education, medical research, border security, housing, the FBI, disaster relief, the State Department, foreign aid, and everything else in the discretionary budget put together. This is unsustainable. If more money for the Pentagon could solve our security challenges, we would have solved them by now. So, how do we responsibly cut back? Well, we can start by ending the stranglehold of defense contractors on our military policy. It's pretty clear that the Pentagon is captured by the so-called Big Five defense contractors, and taxpayers are picking up the bill. Now, if you are skeptical that this is a problem, consider this. The President of the United States has refused to halt arms sales to Saudi Arabia, in part because he is more interested in appeasing U.S. defense contractors than holding the Saudis accountable for the murder of a Washington Post journalist or for thousands of Yemeni civilians who have been killed by those weapons. I get it. The defense industry will inevitably have a seat at the table, but they shouldn't get to own the table. American security and American values should come ahead of the profits of these private companies. It is time to identify which programs actually benefit American security in the 21st century and which programs merely line the pockets of defense contractors, and then pull out a sharp knife and make some cuts. America should also be reinvesting in diplomacy. Foreign policy should not be run exclusively by the Pentagon. And yes, our partners should pay their fair share. But diplomacy is not about charity. It is about advancing U.S. interests and dealing with problems before they morph into costly wars. Similarly, alliances are about shared principles, like our shared commitment to human rights, but they are also about safety in numbers. Not even the strongest nation should have to solve everything on its own. We need our partners. We should also look at where our defense spending is actually counterproductive. For example, the president has threatened Russia with a nuclear arms race, saying we will simply outspend our rivals. Boy, is that wrong. The United States has over 4,000 nuclear weapons in our active arsenal, and our conventional military might is overwhelming. Trump's nuclear arms race does not make us or the world any safer. So let me propose 3 core nuclear security principles. 1, no new nuclear weapons. I have voted against, and I will continue to vote against, this president's attempt to create new, more usable nuclear weapons. 2, more international arms control, not less. We should not spend over $1 trillion to modernize our nuclear arsenal at a time when the president is doing everything he can to undermine generations of verified arms control agreements. Instead, let's start by extending New START through 2026. That'll get us started. And third, no first use. To reduce the chances of a miscalculation or an accident and to maintain our moral and diplomatic leadership in the world, we must be clear that deterrence is the sole purpose of our arsenal. More of everything is great for defense contractors, but it is a poor replacement for a real strategy. We need to be smarter and faster than those who wish to do us harm. We need to tap our creativity to anticipate and evaluate both risks and responses. And we need to better weigh the long-term costs and benefits of military intervention. Those are the ways that we help keep Americans safe. And finally, a foreign policy that works for all Americans must recognize that America can project power abroad only if we are strong and secure at home. But every day, short-sighted domestic policies are weakening our national strength. At a time when growing inequality stifles economic growth, Congress's response has been a $1.5 trillion tax giveaway to the wealthiest. Life expectancy in the United States is falling as drug overdoses skyrocket, and our healthcare system struggles to respond. The U.S. is slashing domestic investments in education and infrastructure, even as potential adversaries double down on exactly those same priorities. Our government guts environmental protections, while coastal cities now spend days underwater and California burns. Investments at home strengthen the economy, but investments at home also serve national security. A 21st century industrial policy, for example, would help produce good jobs that provide dignity and respect and a living wage, and at the same time would reinforce U.S. international economic policy. Our needs at home are many. Infrastructure to create increased connectivity and to expand opportunity across the United States. Immigration policies to yield a more robust economy. Education policies to equip future generations without crushing them with debt. High quality, affordable healthcare, an economy that is fair and open to entrepreneurs and businesses of all size. A progressive tax system that requires the wealthy to pay their fair share. A government that is not for sale to the highest bidder. The 2016 election provided a stark reminder that we must remain vigilant and fight for our democracy every single day. This starts with protecting our elections and our democratic processes and making it clear that there will be severe consequences for those, foreign or domestic, who meddle, hack, or undermine them. It means ensuring a meaningful opportunity for every American citizen to vote. And it means fighting for equal justice and protection under the law for everyone. It also requires us to speak out against hateful rhetoric that fuels domestic terrorism of all kinds, whether in San Bernardino or Charleston, Orlando or Charlottesville, Fort Hood or Pittsburgh. We must speak plainly about all of these incidents. Just like the hateful terrorism of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, domestic right-wing terrorism is completely incompatible with American values. It is a threat to the safety and security of the United States. We must not tolerate it in the United States of America. I wanted to come here today because there is a lot at stake. And your generation will live with the consequences of the decisions that are being made today. Whether our leaders recognize it or not, after years as the world's lone superpower, the United States is entering a new period of competition. Democracy is running headlong into the ideologies of nationalism, authoritarianism, and corruption. China is on the rise, using its economic might to bludgeon its way onto the world stage and offering a model in which economic gains legitimize oppression. To mask its decline, Russia is provoking the international community with opportunistic harassment and covert attacks, including just this week when Russia seized 3 Ukrainian Navy ships near Crimea. Both China and Russia invest heavily in their militaries and other tools of national power. Both hope to shape spheres of influence in their own image. Both are working flat out to remake the global order to suit their own priorities. And both are working to undermine the basic human rights we hold dear. If we cannot make our government work for all Americans, then China and Russia will almost certainly succeed at their goals. But here's the thing about authoritarian governments. They are rotten from the inside out. Authoritarian leaders, they talk a big game about nationalism and patriotism and how they, and they alone, can save the state and the people. But authoritarian system is rotten because by its very design, it stacks the deck for the wealthy and it depends on corruption in order to survive. Vladimir Putin attacks the free press and thumps his chest about the power of Russia, but his real power comes from state-run corporations conveniently overseen by his friends and cronies. That's corruption. In China, President Xi consolidates his power and talks about the China dream, while state-owned and state-influenced corporations make millionaires and billionaires out of friends and family of Communist Party elites. That's corruption. From Hungary to Turkey, from the Philippines to Brazil, wealthy elites work together to grow the state's power, while the state works to grow the wealth of those who remain loyal to the leader. That's corruption, pure and simple. The combination of authoritarianism and corrupt capitalism is a fundamental threat to democracy, both here in the United States and around the world. It is a threat because economic corruption knows no borders, and in a global economy, corruption can provide strategic advantages. It is a threat because corrupt leaders enhance their own power by subverting the power of everyone else. And so they actively undermine free and open societies through cyber attacks, through disinformation campaigns, or through support of illiberal politicians. If free societies like ours slide toward corruption and autocracy, they risk becoming democracies in name only. We need to be honest about the hard work that is needed to restore our democracy here at home and to align our foreign policy abroad to regain the trust of the American people. I can't leave here today without addressing the elephant in the room. President Trump and his political allies in Congress. We must face reality head on. President Trump's actions and instincts align with those of authoritarian regimes around the globe. He embraces dictators of all stripes. He cozies up to white nationalists. He undermines the free press and incites violence against journalists. He attacks the independence of our judiciary. He wraps himself in the flag and co-opts the military for partisan purposes, but he can't be bothered to visit our troops in harm's way. And he has aided and abetted every step of the way by Republican politicians in Washington, too pleased with his judicial appointments and his tax cuts for the wealthy to stand up for fundamental American values. The time for holding back is over. Patriots of every political persuasion must stand up to this type of behavior. Americans must demonstrate to this president and to the world that we are not sliding toward autocracy, not without a fight. "55 years ago, when President John F. Kennedy spoke right here at American University, he said that our problems are man-made, and therefore they can be solved by man. The same is true today. Okay, I'd add they can be solved by women as well. But I believe in us. Americans are an adaptive, resilient people, and we have met hard challenges head-on before. We can work together as we have before to strengthen democracy at home and abroad. We can build a foreign policy that works for all Americans, not just for the wealthy elites. The challenge we face may be our most profound since the end of World War II. Because here's the truth. In our time together this afternoon, we have only scratched the surface of the problems that we face. None of this will be easy, but we will persist. I believe in us. I believe in what we can do. I believe in democracy, and I believe in what we must do to save it. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Warren, for that fantastic speech. We ask that everyone remain seated as we momentarily transition to a moderated question and answer format. Thank you so much.
So how many people skipped class to be here? Ooh, whoa, whoa.
I see you.
I shouldn't have asked that in front of a dean. Okay, there we go.
Thank you so much, Senator. What a great time to hear from you, and we so appreciate you being on campus with us and staying around to answer some questions. These questions all came from our students, and so we're going to start with the first one, which came from Benjamin Kassenbaum. He is a political science major. Is Benjamin in the room?
You hear Benjamin?
Ooh,
Right.
yes, Benjamin. Benjamin asked, with the recent rise in tensions between Russia and the Ukraine, what action should the United States and our European allies take to protect Ukraine's sovereignty?
All right, good question, Benjamin. But let's start with what I think is really going on in Ukraine, and it's Vladimir Putin testing Donald Trump. That's what this is about. And he's just trying to figure out, how far can we push him? And what will the president do by way of response? So the president of the United States is being tested right now in Ukraine, and he is failing. He's not responding with strength. And the failure to do that not only is harmful right now to Ukraine and destabilizing to the country, but it means that Putin is emboldened for the next place he wants to push, and the next place he wants to push, and the next place he wants to push. So we need a strong response, and we needed it yesterday, right? We needed it the day before yesterday. But let me offer a couple of pieces on this, because it fits into these larger questions about foreign policy. We need to have good tools in the toolbox ready to go when Putin does something like this in the Ukraine. And that means not only a military that is strong and ready, but a diplomatic corps that is fully functional and ready to go, and economic policies that are strong and in place, and people ready to work on those. A State Department that has been hollowed out means that it is much more difficult for us to work through solutions. When we're not in close touch with our allies and working with our allies around the globe on a daily basis, then the response is left to the United States and not to the world community. A stronger response comes from the whole world community. So much of President Trump's failure in Ukraine right now is the failure over the past 2 years to strengthen America's tools to respond in circumstances like this. So what could we do just to be more specific? We could put sanctions in place. The last time this happened, we kicked Russia out of the G8. We could have responses together at a minimum to push back and say, not just from the United States, but from the world community, that what he's doing in Ukraine is wrong. And so long as the response is limp or non-existent, Putin will come back and push again and again and again. So I think that's what we should be doing. I should put one more little piece in there, and that is for Ukraine itself. We should be doing what we can to support Ukraine so that they are able to keep their economy stable, to support their people, and keep encouraging Ukraine toward a more democratic form of governance. In the long run, not only is that good for Ukraine and good for the Ukrainian people, it helps strengthen democracy around the globe, and that's what we should be doing. Hope that's helpful.
Next up, we have a question from Nathan White, also a political science major. Nathan asks, with climate change being such a daunting challenge for the entire world as we head into the next decade, the global community needs to unify regarding potential solutions to the crisis. Do you see the United States as having potential to join other countries as a global leader against climate change?
Okay, so I'm here at a university. I feel a little more relaxed. Things I can say here that are very controversial on Capitol Hill. I'm just going to throw one of them out. I believe in science. Climate change is real, and The urgency of the moment cannot be overstated. The United States is a leader in climate policy. It's just leading in the wrong direction right now. By withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, by trying to weaken standards at the Environmental Protection Agency, by not strengthening standards in trade deals, the United States is giving cover to every government around the globe that doesn't want to have to spend the money, that doesn't want to have to take on the wealthy elites who make money from the current policies. We need an America that leads in a direction that is sustainable for our future. You all saw the report, 13 government agencies that weighed in, scientists from all around our government that talked about the urgency of the climate problem, of what this means for America, what it means as the oceans rise, what it means as California burns. But I want to put this in the context, since this is the subject of today's talk, I also want to put it in the context of foreign policy. Think about what climate change means to a changing world. The millions of people who will be forced out of their homes if they live near the ocean, and who will be migrating throughout other countries. The people who will lose access to fresh water and therefore on the move. The people who will lose land that is effective for growing crops, and the increasing conflict over those resources, over diminishing habitable land, over diminishing access to clean water, over diminishing access to the land that will sustain crops. That means a more dangerous world overall and new conflicts all around the globe. This is what policy is supposed to be about. You look out into the future, you take the data that's available now, and you look out into the future and see the problems that are coming our way and deal with them now when you've got a chance. The window for dealing with climate is rapidly closing. The moment is upon us that we must act. Yes, we should rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, but that is not nearly enough. We need to go way beyond the Paris Climate Accord, and we need to be using all of our tools, including all of our tools of foreign policy, to bring as many nations with us as possible. That's what global leadership for the United States would look like. So you asked me, could it happen? I think that was the question. And the answer is, let me tell you what gives me hope in this one. And that is the new class of people who just got elected in 2018. Woohoo! Look, there have been some of us who've been climate warriors for a long time, but to see so many people coming into the new Congress who ran on overtly green policies, saying, I want to put this on my top 3 agenda, is that we as a country need to respond to the climate crisis. That gives me hope, because that's energy not just on Capitol Hill. It's that everyone on Capitol Hill who didn't run on that sees that people who did won. And that tells lots of folks on Capitol Hill, this is an issue not just for wonks, not just, I like wonks, yes. I say that wonk to wonk. But that it's an issue that is increasingly urgent for Americans all around this country. We cannot run a climate policy any longer that's all about increasing the profitability of Koch Industries and the oil industry and other industries that make money off low regulations and continuing to poison the air and foul the water. So this all fits into the kinds of things I was talking about in my speech. The importance of having foreign and domestic policy, you can't separate them in the 21st century, foreign and domestic policies that don't just work to enhance the profits of a wealthy elite, but that work for a sustainable life for all of us. So we got to do this, and we're going to.
Thank you. And I just want to say, while you're feeling loose and in a different place, if you have any announcements to make, I think this would be a room that would be interested in those. So just in case.
Okay.
But for the next question, we have a question from Max Robbins. He's a political science major here. And he asked, while at Harvard, you are recognized as one of the country's leading experts on bankruptcy laws and financial pressures facing the middle-class family. You've since advocated that bankruptcy laws should be changed to permit consumers to discharge student loan obligations in bankruptcy. Where would you draw the line between those consumers who should be eligible for such relief and those who should not?
Okay, all right. Student loans. Nobody here cares about that, do you? Oh, Lordy. Actually, what I want to do, I want to talk about student loans, and I want to talk about it in the context of what I was just talking about overall, and that is about who government works for. So let's start with some basic information about student loans. The student loan debt burden in America today is about $1.5 trillion. The thing is so big now that, think about it this way, every year some people graduate, some people drop out of school and start paying their loans, and some new people come in to school, whether it's graduate school or undergraduate school, and borrow some money. So you'd think that'd be fairly stable, right? The student loan debt burden is so huge and so unmanageable for so many people. So many people are now in deferral, in default on their student loans, and the interest rate is high enough that the student loan debt burden in America is now growing by $100 billion a year. Think about that. And the impact that has on America. So we know, again, this is what policy is supposed to be about. You look at the data now and you do the projections into the future. We know the ages at which, it's a normally distributed curve, but the ages at which people move out of their folks' home, people get their first apartment, people buy a car, people buy a home, the ages at which people do that. And all of that is shifting to the right. That is later and later and later because of student loan debt. It's having a discernible impact on our economy. Here's the one. According to studies, the studies have been done by the Fed, by the Treasury Department, by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Small business startup is being dragged back because of student loans. People who have a great idea, want to try a little business, want to get out there and roll the dice, you've got to make that student loan payment every month. You can't do that. So $1.5 trillion. Let me tell you about another $1.5 trillion. Just less than a year ago, the Republicans, and look, I don't have to be partisan about this, that's just factual. Every Republican in the United States Congress voted to give away $1.5 trillion to billionaires and giant corporations. Every Democrat opposed that. And think about what that means. There is the example of government that works for a thin slice at the top for folks who have already made it big time and says, the rest of you better keep paying those student loans to keep the government running. To me, that's just upside down. And it's upside down, not just family by family by family. How in a democratically elected government could anyone make a choice like that? We're going to prefer a thin slice rather than 44 million Americans who are dealing with student loan debt across this country. How can we do that? And this is the fundamental question facing our government, facing our country right now. Who should government work for? So the question was posed as who should get a student loan discharge and who shouldn't? Let me just remind everybody in this room, we used to have bankruptcy laws that said if you go to the mall and you charge a lot of, you buy a lot of goods and fun stuff, and you run up a bill on your credit card and you can't pay it, you can go to bankruptcy and discharge it. It said if you get sick and you got a bunch of medical bills and you just can't pay, you could go to bankruptcy and you can discharge it. And the law used to say, and if you run up a bunch of student loan debts and you tried and you spent a period of time repaying them and you just can't pay it, then you can go to bankruptcy. Because we had this notion that in America, you ought to do your best, but the creditors took on some of this risk. This is what interest payments were for. But we are a country that wants everybody back in the game. We want everybody to have a reason to get out there and to work. We want everybody to feel like they have a piece of tomorrow's future and they have an interest in building that future. You know what's happened over time? In the same period of time I've been talking about, you kind of track it through the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the capacity of people who get in trouble on any kind of debt to discharge it in bankruptcy went down, but students got singled out. So that today, effectively, you can't discharge a student loan in bankruptcy. So let me get this straight. If you go to the mall, if you get sick, there's at least the possibility of getting bankruptcy help. But if what you tried to do is get an education, there's no possibility, no matter how hard it is. And just so everyone in here understands, I don't want to be grim today. There are people whose Social Security checks are being garnished to help pay for student loans. People who went back to school in their 50s, people who co-signed for a beloved child or grandchild, people who have not been able to pay, and the debt just mounts up and up and up. So my view on this is we really do have this moment now. It's in front of us. It's in front of us on the environment, right? It's in front of us on a lot of these foreign policy questions that are coming our way. But it's this basic intersection question. Who do you think government should work for? Government today works great. Washington works great if you're rich. Washington works fabulously well if you run a giant corporation that can hire an army of lawyers and lobbyists. Washington works great if you can afford to hire somebody to go not just into every congressional office, but every regulatory agency, every think tank, and just get, not huge ones, the $1.5 trillion stands out in the tax bill, but generally just a little tilt in your direction. And the next month, a little more tilt. And next year, just a little more tilt. Until it's an America that's working better and better for a smaller and smaller group at the top. What kind of a country are we going to be at home and around the world? I think that's what's on the table. But I want to say on this, I have real hope. I came here to talk about democracy. I came here to talk about autocracies that are on the rise. But I came here in the wake of a huge election where Americans showed up to vote. Americans showed up to say my issues matter. Americans showed up to say my voice matters. And whether they framed it as because it matters on the environment, or whether they framed it as because it matters because I want to hear from some women or from people of color or people who are not just part of the establishment, or whether they framed it as student loans. The core part of it was, I'm here with this fundamental optimism that my vote matters, that my turning out matters, that my volunteering matters, and that I'm going to be heard by this giant government in Washington. The world changed in 2016. It changed again in 2018. I believe it's going to change again in 2020. Go get them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're so grateful for you coming to AU again to share your vision, your wisdom, and your hope. And we wish you well and thank you for being with us today. We're all going to stay seated. She needs to exit the building quickly. So if everyone will stay in their seats, but join me in thanking her for being here.